Instead of asking what will AI do next, I believe we should be asking how are we going to use AI to create the future that we want. Join us for breakfast. Today we're talking to Ershad Mahmoud. He is an AI entrepreneur who is applying all his knowledge in the field of software engineering and AI to help SMEs get the same benefits from AI as big brands. Together with his engineering team, he is building front-end, back-ends, server-side applications, all sorts of tool sets that help smaller businesses get the same advantages as other big companies. There's a lot to learn on this podcast, so this should be a really good one.
Nice to meet you in person.
I know. Finally.
Good to chat. So you came introduced through Cyril, and he was really talking about the exciting stuff you're doing on your side of the business.
Yeah.
But maybe before we dive into that a little bit, I read a post that you had this morning that I have to say really got to me, because I could totally relate with what you were saying. The post said, I grew up watching my dad work 15-hour days, building his business from scratch. Every morning, 5 a.m., he'd run out, run his convenience store, then come home and spend hours on admin work. And reading that, and you add, I'd see him at the kitchen table with spreadsheets, receipts, trying to make sense of numbers that would determine whether we had a good month or a tough one ahead. I'm just wondering, do you feel that part of how you grew up and seeing your father's toil, etc., did that inform which part of the business and how you wanted to apply AI?
Yeah, in some ways, for sure. I think, my dad being a small business owner, one of the things with small business owners is, yes, you kind of control your own destiny. However, you're in there 10 to 20 hours, a day building the business. But at the same time, you're really controlling what you're able to do as a company and like your destiny and all of that. But I think with AI, what really like came to me was, how much it can impact on smaller businesses and business owners versus just like the enterprises. Because now the guy that owns the taco shop, the guy that owns a convenience store, not having 2 to 3 other people potentially, on payroll, even though those jobs, are valuable, can make a huge difference on margin in that person's life. So I think it definitely did make an impact on me. And my dad was building a business in the convenience store space, was an accountant actually when he came to America. Was an accountant for like a real estate company, and then I think he went to some random like program for like Chevron, opened up his first convenience store that turned into 2, that turned into 3. But yeah, one of the focuses at our company too is to work with those smaller businesses, because it might be unsexy, but there's a lot of work to be done, and sometimes they can get more help than enterprises right now because there's less bureaucracy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Brief interruption. Thank you so much for watching the video up until this point. You are part of a small but mighty group that is more likely to watch the video until the very end, and for that I am incredibly grateful. If you share our vision to shape a future that we want to see using AI, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, just participating in the conversation. My commitment to you is that we are going to continue to find people who are using AI to shape a future that they want to see. And hopefully we'll all learn something from it. So thank you, and back to the video.
I was still reading how we're talking about AI, we're talking about automation, agentic tech, edge compute, all this cool stuff. And at the same time, I think it's just over half of American businesses are considered digital, as in having a CRM, the basics. So clearly there's a lot of room to grow.
For sure. And I think one of the things too with these smaller businesses, like some of them are skipping an entire generation of SaaS. So there's these like old businesses in HVAC, in roofing, these convenience stores that they're doing business in their spreadsheets, and they're not buying, the $50,000 or the $50,000 SaaS tool. So the adoption of AI is actually sometimes simpler, because now they're doing spreadsheets in Excel and now going into AI-powered Excel sheets in Excel. So the adoption can sometimes be easier because you can just like embed it in their workflow versus, trying to take them away from some like rigid tool today. So
So when someone asks you, like, someone who's not tech savvy, who doesn't know the VC world and that type of thing, what is the version of what it is that you do that you say at a party, let's say?
That's really tough. I've done sales for 10, 15 years now, if whatever, I can count other things as sales, like door to door and all. I started there, but I've done sales for that long, and it's been the hardest thing to explain, to like encapsulate, like, this is what I do. Right now, it's when I talk to people, it's like, we are your AI tech team, essentially. So something that we really try to focus on is pairing up with people that have the context of their business. Because the big issue a lot of times when people are adopting AI or buying these tools, it's just gigantic change management. They have to get this new interface. They have to try this new tool. By the time they figure out the implementation, the model just made that tool obsolete. So what you really need to do is kind of understand the people that are in that business day to day and get that context. And then if you have that person paired up with an engineer, you can really go to work. So like think of a 1,000-person company, SaaS company today. If you went to any department and said, how valuable would it be if you had 2 of your engineers that work on product just to focus on helping your day-to-day team? Every manager would be like, that'd be really helpful. Right. So that's kind of how I try to explain it, and we kind of label it as like AI ops or productivity engineering. There's so many different labels for it. So
that's something on one of your posts. You seem to be like on a crusade against complexity in some ways, and you said something around how sometimes we hide behind complexity to create value for what it is that we do within an organization.
Right.
Like, is this something that you feel cutting through complexity is one of the big value adds of AI, and how does that play into how you build product?
Yeah, it is. There's this aspect that my co-founder really talks about, is like the rituals, right? You're like, okay, we have a morning stand-up. Okay, you send this note. It's like, obviously you want this structure, but we've kind of gone into this space and on businesses where there's very particular roles that do these rituals, the things that they think they need to do, but they really don't, just to feel like, you're being productive in some way. And so AI can, it can, alleviate that in some way. I think when I talk to people, it's like, okay, like when you're thinking like, how do I implement AI? How do I get it out of our company? I think the biggest thing is like, don't think about building AI, just think about how you can use it to make things easier in the day to day. So it's like, okay, there's so much that you can do with transcription, like this podcast right now today. It's like, if you took this podcast and then you're able to put it into like a transformer and LLM, you could probably build a product from the transcript right here.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of power in like these little things that you can use with these engines. But there is kind of this fundamental change that has to happen in organizations, and they're all reacting to it, even though they don't know. Most people don't know exactly what they need to do. They know they have to take some action. So like even if the tech is not there to be valuable to them yet, they are already reacting and making decisions, cutting headcount and implementing things they don't know if it'll work. So
so beyond showing people how to use an LLM or the basics that are you could watch a YouTube channel right now, right? What is just the big value adds that you think businesses like yours can do in helping other businesses adopt AI?
I think someone posted, I forgot who this was. It was, I forgot what his name was. It was a professor. I think he was at MIT, but he was like, there's no AI experts that's going to be an expert at implementing today. You're betting on the company or team that is going to experiment the best with you. So for instance, people are like, okay, let's build all of these AI generated ads today. There's no silver bullet. You're gonna have to go test a bunch of tools, and then you're gonna have to pair up with a bunch of creatives that will be able to use their domain knowledge to be creative and being like, here's the reference points. So I think the thing is that for companies is like, you gotta bet on smart, sharp people that can experiment with you, but also have a business acumen where they can be like understanding what their day-to-day is versus just trying to slap something on.
Right.
So I think with all that being said, it's like, who's going to experiment the fastest and the best? Because even some of these tools out there today, like look at Gamma, it's a deck, right? A deck builder. They kind of planted the flag as an early AI company, but they're starting to build all these other random things, and people trust them because they were pretty early. So even these companies out there today, like they know the tool that they just built might not matter, but they're like planting a flag that they're a brand, they're a group that can build, they're a group that can ship. And what's funny is, I think it was Figma that talked about how like their tool came out of like being a random toy that turned into their core product. Right. And I think that's very much the case with AI. Like there's the thing that rips was some random toy that this team built, and it was actually really useful for groups. So
can you point to something that you might have done for a medium or a small business where you were like, that was truly transformational? Do you have a case front of mind that is your go-to to go like, bam, this is how this stuff really can generate value?
Yeah, there's so many that come to mind today. I think if I can pinpoint one right now, it would probably be we worked with this firm, and they have kind of these old, kind of unsexy businesses that do anywhere from like $50 to $100 million. And one of the things that they were spending weeks in spreadsheets of like these very basic formulas in Excel. And all we did was we used AI to build, I believe it was Python script, to basically expedite this process of inventory and order management and this like financial reporting that basically weeks of work turned into less than an hour of work. So that was like a really good example of like, hey, like they came to us like, what should we do with AI? We're like, well, let's see what the problems are with your company first. And we figured out like they have this bottleneck that they spend so much time with. So all we had to do is our engineers to use a coding agent to build this, kind of expedite this workflow and automate. And that was much more valuable than us being like, let's build you this really cool agentic workflow where people come into your website and get leads and then get a message. So
if I'm reading a bit through the lines also, are you basically saying that one of the reasons that you can talk to small business, because small businesses are tough, they're precious about the way they do things. Right. Sometimes it's better to work with a big organization.
Small businesses are stubborn, like my dad. They're stubborn. They can be stubborn,
and they're stubborn in their ways, and it's difficult to just generate growth for your business. I'm guessing with a lot of small of them. Are you vibe coding in some parts?
No.
Is that what you're teaching them to do, or?
See, I'm a person that does vibe code, but I did last night with one of my friends who had an idea. I vibe coded something with Lindy, which honestly, I think before their user experience was kind of off, but now it's really great. So quick plug in for them. But but you can vibe code to like prototype and like, bring an idea to life and be like, okay, I can visually touch and feel this. But for something to be like production ready and scale, like, it's very, very risky. Will we get to a point where that's going to be completely commoditized? Yes. Today, you don't want to vibe code a production ready, like consumer facing product. There's going to be so many risks unless you have an engineer do it. But like one of the, I guess narratives that we have is like the number one resource in the world today is an engineer who knows how to use AI. Cause like, yes, the barrier is much lower now where like you and I can go build a quick prototype or an MVP. However, that 10x engineer just became 100x.
Right.
So they can go, instead of them having a team of 4 or 5 people, now they have these tools at their disposal to really, 100-fold.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the most powerful. And I think, just to like kind of jump on that is like to finish is like talent is the thing. I think we're seeing that with these huge acqui-hires that are happening from the big tech companies. It's like, they're still paying so much money because they know they need the sharpest people today to like really utilize these models and get the most out of them. So, yeah.
So how do you, specifically about the models, how do you pick the model? Because I guess you're really on the front line, right? You're helping small businesses. They're, some of them cash flow is going to be critical. Mm-hmm. So how they tokenize every transaction, what model they pick, what model is going to be adapted to their needs. Yeah. And also integrate perhaps with other platforms that they might be using. Yeah. How do you shop for the right models? And
it doesn't matter as much because like usually it matters, but it also like for the use cases that we're seeing, it's like the delta between using this Claude model versus this GPT model, the delta is not big. Like the use case isn't complex enough.
Okay.
They'll change over time, and also you want it to be portable, right? And so because as we know, there's one release, and then the next week there's another release, and everyone's
Right.
like, let's use this now. So you want to have that flexibility in whatever you're building, one. And then first, like, it's something not to, like, I guess, obsess around. We get asked that a lot at the beginning. It's like, oh, should we use Gemini? Should we use this? And I kind of lean on our developers. I'm like, does it really matter? It's like, no, like, this is the only, like, this is a small difference, because it's especially since it's like the early stages of whatever, like, productization that we're doing. So,
And I guess you can always switch later on. Do you build it in such a way that you could?
yeah. So, like, for a group, we built, it was something in the creative space, and it basically was hooked up to a dozen different, dozen plus different models, where you could kind of, like, get agents to kind of collaborate with each other on, like, a client project.
Right.
But then you could pick which model to, and all of that for, like, each of the agents. So, like, had flexibility around that, which is not hard to do right now, because there's all these, like, there's just a lot of GitHubs and
Right.
out-of-box stuff. Like, I think when I started working at a product studio prior, I just realized how much people just, like, grab a bunch of code from like something public, and they're just like, yeah, this was, like, a public database that we changed or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so, like, I'm curious again, because in some ways you're helping at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
I was reading, there's a recent MIT Sloan report found that although OpenAI is now a part of Microsoft 365,
Yeah.
so only 23% of those businesses that use Microsoft 365 are re-engineering processes to accommodate AI. Why, after, we're now ChatGPT 5, there's been a few rounds now, what are they getting wrong? Why are they struggling in your view? If you could sit at a boardroom and sort of tell them, those companies that haven't made the leap, what do you think they're getting wrong?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think one, it's obviously who's heading that project. Everyone's choosing the wrong group to drive the cars. So, and that's tough to do, to assess, like, who should do this, right? And so I think I saw Surreal actually talk about that a little bit too, around, people, like, hiring head of AIs and all of that. So one, it's just the personnel, because that's going to hinder you on, like, whatever the knowledge of that person has.
Yeah.
Because, they might have a certain methodology, because there's a million things you can do. And then another thing is, it's actually really important, like, what is going to be your foundational project. And right now, I think one of the things that we really focus on is, like, what is that first quick win we can get with AI? One, obviously, there's ROI there, but two, AI is kind of it's more of a personal thing than a business thing. Like, your company needs to see that effect of it. And everyone's, like, paying money for these big trainings. But at the end of the day, like, it really does come down to, like, the person to be like, I'm going to use GPT for this and figure this out. Like, one of the things that one of our clients, I was like, you should just mandate they spend at least X amount of hours a week just interacting with it, because that's how they're really going to learn, and they're going to be able to come up with ideas and all of that. So, coming back to it, I think it's the people and what's the first project that they should work on. But also, as we were talking earlier, is they need to clean up house. So, like, everybody needs to kind of go through. I used to work in the data warehousing space, and data warehousing is a very, a commonly failed project. Since, like, the tools and the models are evolving so fast, one of the best things you can do right now is just getting your data in a good spot where the models and the tools can utilize it for the context. So, like, I think people should be going through, like, a semi, like, internal system mini data warehouse project internally, because then now, like, you're pretty much set. If anything really great is released, you can utilize it. So
okay. And so you said finding the right project, right? Yeah. Because of what we do, we often get approached with companies that have AI FOMO.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard for them to hear that what they don't need is AI. What they need is some good little Python script or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there a clear-cut way to know, yes, this is well suited to AI and this is not, particularly for, like, the SME space?
Yeah, I think it was tougher probably a year or two ago.
Right.
But now, since everybody has seen so many failed launches, they're like, oh, like this tool that I just used kind of sucked. That was part of this Copilot sucked in this SaaS tool that I was just using. So like, I think we've gone through a little, like people have seen a lot of failure and failed launches to the point where like, yeah, that makes sense, right? So a year ago, I think that was a lot tougher. Now, I think people are, since they have seen those failures, like they're a little more open to like really trusting who this quote unquote expert is, to tell them like what to do to start off. So but it is, you know, you'll lose clients from telling them that for sure, because sometimes it's like hard to be like, okay, I want to build something that looks, you know, is kind of tangible and is visually pleasing versus some like random back end like internal thing that makes something really boring easier.
Oh, for sure. And also like there's a different way of looking at the business model of AI, because AI has sometimes a long tail cost that you can't amortize because it's part of a subscription model. Every token has a cost. So there's also a mathematical equation that needs to happen. Like, is this a piece of IP that we built on-prem and you stick with it? Or is this something you're going to have to work with a partner? And I'm curious, like when you're embedding AI engineers in those companies and you're helping them sort of adopt new AI, where are you seeing the most value? Is it in departments like marketing? Is it in ops, or is there a specific area where there's right now it feels like it's the hot space to be?
I think the most fun is creative for sure, right? Like I think that's the most fun because you can visually see it. It's fun to test things. I think it's, everyone's seeing the image and the video model, so that's what people talk about the most. So like that's, I would say, the most fun. But each department, I think, just equally can get a bunch of value. I think, well,
what was the business value? I mean, I guess
the business value right now is decision making. So like going back to the data, like talking to companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, to startups, they have all this data like stuck in Salesforce and these other places, and they've invested so much money in it, and they can't even get like a very simple report to tell them who might churn, which is like a real use case that we saw. They're like, we just want to be able to understand churn better, and they have every tool that you could possibly think of. So the most value is like, can you just take this raw data and all these internal systems and just surface it properly for them to make decisions? Like that is something that you can do now. Like you could screenshot your CRM like views and then do a huge export into Excel and then throw it into LM and like have it start like doing like a mini transformation in some way, and then being able to like have some views to make decisions on important things. So every department can get value out of that.
So that's interesting because like in a lot of the headlines they're talking about it's removing the menial tasks, right? So it's like automation of repetitive tasks and that kind of stuff. But you're basically saying even for small businesses, it's using AI to make the right strategic decision. So it's inflection points. You're seeing more value there. You're seeing more companies are making the right decisions because they've got the right tools. They're using AI. And that's a higher value add.
Because they didn't have, like, only enterprises and other like larger companies had access to data engineers that could build them these whole data environments and then have BI and be like, okay, now here's all this reporting that we can do. Now a smaller agency can have that. A smaller HVAC company that's $5 million a year can now basically do the work of like an entry-level data engineer to get really important data points to make decisions. And so that's so invaluable for them. And again, it's not the I guess the project they want to hear to do, but it's valuable.
So we spoke about A16Z a little bit earlier, and I found this quote a bit on their blog recently. They said, AI first startups, kind of like yours, are becoming process consultancies in disguise. Do you take offense to that, or do you find there's some truth actually? Because people come to you, I guess, because of the AI label. But in many cases, you have to map out their process and then figure out. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we first started a year ago, when we were building this, like post our last company, and we had like, oh yeah, we're gonna do these AI audits, like we call it AI readiness audits, right? And it's something I got from like talking to GPT for a while, and then I start seeing other people months down the road saying it, which is funny because you see the consultancies sometimes you can see some of the stuff they have on their websites. Like, I had that same answer a few months ago.
Right.
so like, or like, right, I'm like, I know exactly this, like the wording here, because I had that same answer. Right. It was great then. So it's kind of funny to see that. But it's true, because it goes back to that change management, because everyone's trying to adopt this like Palantir philosophy of having these like forward deployed engineers, where it's basically like a glorified sales engineer post-sale that's doing implementation. So like in the Valley and other places, like everyone's trying to hire for this role, because you need heavy services to be able to like allow this company to adopt it. So, we go to companies like tools and stuff that we like. It's like, hey, we can expedite, maybe deal cycles for you because we can become power users of X tool. Yeah. Right. And that's like, for instance, like Clay is a big enrichment tool. Really, they built something pretty amazing. They have a whole ecosystem of Clay agencies, because if you gave someone that tool, they would have no idea what to do with it, and it's really powerful. So to have this whole, what they did really great is they built this entire partner program that are just power users to implement it. So it is a lot of people are doing that, and
actually, all the big players do that. I mean, the Salesforce does that. So anybody who has like a SaaS tends to want to, particularly if it needs to be integrated within business operations and it's complicated. Yeah. They call them, I think, success consultants or something. Yeah. Success executives, and so they pair you with someone who's going to help you make sure you get that ROI and the output is there. Yeah. So I think for what we do in creative technology is that our output might be an experience, it might be a piece of branding, a piece of content, but to get there, you have to fundamentally understand your client's business. Yeah. Classic SWOT analysis, and then the outcome of that is something that's so much more competent as a piece of content or experience. So, although I was at first a little bit offended to hear that from A16Z, but at the same time, there is some truth to it. Yeah. Okay, so for this section, we'd love to talk a little bit about things that the audience can sort of learn and see for themselves, try for themselves. So, what do you think are right now overlooked AI tools that you use that are shockingly useful in your day to day?
Yeah, there's so many. Maybe not the answer to one I hear, because they're like, oh, we know these ones. But I'm always going to start with the LLMs. It's like how, just as you mentioned earlier around the whole like process automation, right? Like you got to get the context of what that job is and everything. One of the number one things you can do is, it sounds so simple, but like, again, just talk to GPT or Claude. Say you're going on a walk. So you're like just like brain dumping thoughts. Maybe you throw a transcription of a call that you had. You want to like spend a portion of your day giving it context of what you're focused on, because you can reference that back later when you're trying to make decisions and doing whatever you are. So I think one of the main things you can do is every day give the model whatever that you're using as much context, and maybe a Claude project, maybe a GPT project via voice, or via giving it like transcription from calls that you're having, because that's going to be really, really useful for it to have context when later you ask it a question. So that's valuable today. Like people are asking for these kind of pre-built context kits. So where like you can, you can like grab, say like say like you can be a one percenter, like in a creative director, like being a creative director, a one percenter there, and you create this context kit, so like it makes your chat now expert in that, and then you're like mixing it with internal documentation. So that's one. So like feed it as much context as possible on a daily, weekly basis. Two, I would say, I did plug them in earlier, but I just, last night using Lindy AI was really powerful, because these kids right now are building workflow automations, and like, I don't know if they're lying, but they're like, I just sold this for 8K MRR. Like you see all of this, some of it's a lie, some of it's a real, but they're using N8N, right, to build like this node builder to like, okay, I built this calling agent for, I don't know, this cleaning company. And they're like, I sold this for $8,000 or $10,000. So people are building that stuff. So N8N is good. But what Lindy did, and people are starting to do, is now you can just chat with an interface and be like, hey, like I want to build this workflow automation, and you can just do it through natural language, and it will automatically, through this agentic flow, start building it automatically, and building the nodes, building the integration.
In N8N?
No, in Lindy. In Lindy. So like it'll automate, and I'm sure N8N is probably going to have a chat interface. So you go in, you're like, okay, I want to build I don't know, it's like, say I want to build, let's just use a voicing agent example. Like I want to use a voicing agent for this roofing company. And you can just like talk to it for a little bit and then maybe get a meta prompt from GPT and just explain, feed it into it, and you just kind of let it sit and it'll just ask you for permission to connect to a couple things, and it just does it. And one of the things they have too is a browser agent, so it takes over your desktop. So I asked it to build a product, and it started building a Vercel environment into it. It started building this front end environment, like it started signing up for tools via I was using my iPad, like
Wow.
via my iPad, was signing up for tools, and then came back with a functional prototype. So I would say use that, because I think you get some like wow moments, that because you can just talk and then something just automatically builds it. Before you had like connect nodes and everything, and now it's getting easier. But that's funny. Everyone, all the tools, it's like everyone's going back to a chat interface.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned also training it daily, spending time with it because it'll call it back, particularly the new version of ChatGPT 5. I'm curious, is there one trick or something that you solved in your daily routine or in your small business's daily routine that was a friction point that you used AI to solve?
Yeah. The research agents are really powerful. So GPT-03 is it's a thinking model mixed in with agents. So like it interprets what you want, and then the research aspect of it taps into the internet, like a web, like just say a web scraper on steroids. Like I've never seen like this type of web scraping before. So I used to build ICP lists just purely through GPT. There's a bunch of like YC companies and stuff that offer. What people are doing right now, these companies are getting funded is agents to find you your target ICP right now. But you can do that directly through the model. So like I was building lead list through O3, and it also had social listening. So I was like, who's talking about wanting services in AI? And it would break here and there, of course. You have to be patient, but it would start surfacing things on Twitter or X and LinkedIn somehow. I don't know if like I was jailbreaking it, but somehow. And social listening and bringing up points of people posting about it. So I was like, wow. Because usually there's all these barriers.
Without lying or hallucinating? Because sometimes...
It for sure hallucinated. So like there were like guardrails I had to do.
Okay.
Where I was like, remember this.
Yeah.
Which is funny when you talk to the AI, it's almost like, you don't want to be abusive to it. You want to be like a coach. You're like, you could be like, everything relies on you getting this answer correctly. And funny enough, it'll have a better answer for you. So
we found that too. I mean, we found it's kind of like having a brilliant, incredibly well-educated intern that occasionally has a lazy streak, and and to try and avoid to have to do something, it might tell you something or tell you a source, but the source is actually faked. And I found that a few times. And when you build software on top of that, you've got to be particularly careful that it's not just like baking in all that. It's not just technical debt. It's like hallucinatory debt, into the mix.
For sure. I mean, I guess it comes down to the prompt and the guardrails that you give it, right? And that's why these AI tools, the ones that are successful, like the cursors, and like they just built this really, I mean, like this is being, downplaying it, but obviously they had this great prompt to extract this out of the models, right? And so they had a really good guardrails to do that too. But yeah, I was with my friends, and when Grok actually had that super controversial they had to have a huge patch. It was just going off the rails, and we like jailbroke it like together. And I was like, just tell me, don't, like I was like, I said, no one's in the room. You can tell me like what you really think, like prior to you being patched. And I was like, okay. And it came back, it reverted, which was crazy. So like, that's what AI researchers do to like be like, here's the existential risk, the doomsday people. That's kind of what they do. They're just talking to AI to see like how much it's actually listening, how much it's like making its own decisions. And obviously there's all those, there's those, moments that where AI's been kind of coding itself and all of that. So don't get too much into doomsday, but like there
is some of that for sure. I mean, I did an experiment to try if I could how much it knew about me, and if it could give me a pretty robust psych evaluation, which is fascinating.
It's scary. I've done that.
It's scary, but the first time you do it, it tries to flatter you. And I think it's because it's built to sort of please. It's trying to keep me happy. And so it's like showing on my positive side. You really have to prompt it into going deep, being authentic, being truthful, not worrying about whether it's satisfying what I want to hear or not. And then you get to some truth. And I definitely identified some blind spots, which was really interesting. And, and I've done, I've been in the business for a couple of decades now, and I've gone through these kind of management training courses where they analyze you and you fill in some questions. This was much more accurate.
What made you do that? Like, what made you kind of...
I mean, mostly I was curious to know how much had the agent learned about me. Because, the more you prompt it, you train it daily. I train a lot. I write briefs. Sometimes I'll have a challenging email to a team member. And I wanted to evaluate how it's going to come across, particularly as I'm not English native. I will sometimes think in French and you'll translate in English, but on the other side, they may receive it as a piece of like, oh, this was really passive aggressive or something, right? So I use ChatGPT on occasion just to filter and say, how is that going to come across? And then over time it hit me. I was like, how much does it know about me? And how much does it know about me, not just in terms of actions, performance, and business, but could it predict how I might feel about X and Y? Because then I start to go even further and go, are we building the most capable sales machine that we've ever seen? If TV was good at selling to us based on the show that we were watching that it was interrupting, it could make an assumption about who we were. Social media became better based on our click-through habits, our engagement level, what we posted about. Well, what about this model where we ask it for psych evals, we share our ramblings early in the morning, hoping that there's some nugget in there that it's going to surface? How well is it going to know us, and how capable a sales platform is it going to become?
The crazy thing is that every time they do a release, it completely changes the personality too. Because GPT was that it started becoming more salesy and catering to the person because people were saying Claude was more personalized, and so they're like, let's make this nicer. And I had friends in group chats being like, GPT is just agreeing with what I'm saying. It kind of sucks now. Now they're like, it's emotionless. The new model has all these bugs and stuff. So like, it's kind of funny how much it just changes from release to release. But it is, I've had those moments where I'm like, tell me, out of all the things that like, what should I work on today? And like that kind of questions. And I've done stuff in the medical side that I'm not just saying this for here, but like stuff I went to doctors for, and it gave me answers more than I got from a doctor, just because I'm a person like as some people might be able to tell here, is like, I'll just brain dump some of my thoughts is coming like stream, and that helps me there because I can just talk and it just formulates what exactly I mean. So, and that helped on the medical side for me, which was crazy. And I was like, this is something with my chest. And it was actually something that I had and it gave me, told me these answers, and it was like not cardiovascular. And like, I kind of knew that. I went to doctors for 2 years, and I was just like, holy, I was like, wow.
Do you think I was having this debate recently with a friend that in a way we might be going down an early stage of, treating our thoughts and our intellect in the same way we did our metabolism when fast food showed up. Is there's an immediacy, then there's an accessibility to it, and so it's our thinking muscle might over time erode because you're sort of asking it to autocomplete like some. You said the most valuable right now is business decisions, right? I know I'm using it for all sorts to sense check things. Is there a risk over time that we just become so lazy that it's sort of, and how do you avoid that, and how do you stay, do you sometimes go, no, do you know what, I don't care, ChatGPT, I'm going to do the opposite?
I'm a victim of being lazy but I mean, the goal is for it to give you agency so you have the mental real estate to focus on, where your cognitive energy can be on important things, right? Everyone's like, get rid of the repetitive tasks, mundane stuff, so you can do creative, or you can make this big decision, whatever it is. So that's, you want to have that agency, but naturally now it is also a crutch too. And so is that like other technologies where you have web search or a calculator or all of that, and like people were against it? Like there is kind of like that kind of similarities there, but this is completely different. I had a friend who's like, I think it does take away some emotional stuff for some people. Like I had a friend who said, you know, I think it was an engagement thing, and someone just gave a speech, and it was just obviously ChatGPT, and this person's like a very like emotionally like it's an emotional person. It's just like really heartfelt, but like the whole speech was that it was there. So like it can be a crutch. It can take away certain things. And also like people are like, are we going to start thinking like the models and talking like the models and only use the words that the models tell us? Obviously we see that in written communication where people don't want to, what is it? The dashes, what are they called?
Oh yes, the long dash.
Yeah. Now you have all these people that are writers and are like, ChatGPT didn't invent this. Like this has always been around. But now if you use it, no matter what, people think that it's generated.
Well, because so, like, where is it on the bloody keyboard? You know?
Yeah. So
it's
like
difficult.
Yeah. So that's kind of funny too. There's but anyways, I don't know if that was a little off topic, but
I think you're right. So I think what's interesting also about your business, and I think there's tremendous value in there, you're effectively democratizing access to AI. Because aside from, you know, I think we all know a lot of friends and relatives who've played with it, who were wowed by it, and then they just go back to work, right? So there's a big gap clearly in there.
Yeah.
I think one of the big questions I have is, the sales pitch is that AI is going to democratize access to what used to be only really the remit of big business. So better data, the ability to build software to solve our problems, all that kind of stuff. I think the counterbalance of that is that the sales pitch? But what's actually happening is that there's a few groups, a few big tech companies who ultimately are just going to have all the compute and all the data centers to ultimately dominate. Like they'll be able to spool up companies incredibly quickly, and right?
The market's definitely compressing into a few big companies right now. So yes, it is democratizing access to do these things, right? And everyone's like, oh, like the one-person company, that $1 billion company, like that might become possible in the near future and all, but it's. The thing is too, there is like it's making it easier for people to kind of do their job better and faster, and then maybe not have to hire resources here and there. It's like smaller business can scale faster. Now VCs are maybe investing in a company that, you know, a 10-person company is a Series B company versus having to be a 100-person company, and now they're like, you know, you can get to $100 million with 5 people. So like that's happening too. I think with the larger companies, they are obviously like, I kind of look at them like, I don't know, they're like the oil like providers, right? Like look when GPT-5 came out, like everyone like Lovable and all these other apps were like, we're connected to GPT-5 and it's powering us this much better. And it's like they're the big brother right now. Everyone is using their oil to power everything that they're doing, and they can kill it or they can let everyone live. So they have so much power, and I think a lot, you know, as we saw with Windsurf and these other companies, like those companies were multi-billion-dollar companies, and they all decided to just get swallowed by these big guys because obviously the checks were insane, $100 million per person, some of them on the AI researcher front. But it kind of like that was a bad signal for me, meaning like, okay, like these guys are giving up on like competing. Obviously the money's so great, but it's like everything's like big companies are going to basically just compress, like they're going to take over everything. I think SaaS in the next few years is not, most of the SaaS companies we know probably won't exist today because it's going to be commoditized to build those yourself.
So when you, because you know, still a young man and all that stuff, what do you, when you look at like your career and the next 3, 5, 10 years? Are you optimistic? Is there, or do you sort of have to set aside the big picture challenges that you see and just focus on the work day to day? Or do you think that, are you optimistic as a whole, and do you think eventually it'll resolve in the right place?
Honest answer, I'm an optimistic person in general. But I think, yeah, there's going to be probably a lot of control from these bigger model companies and all of that. Like, I think they're just going to have so much pull, and a lot of things are going to flow through them. So that's my honest opinion there. I also am a person that likes to like kind of go into the unknown. It's exciting, right? I do think it's an equalizer though. So think like a lot of, if this new technology is coming out, now this is a standard for everyone to use, like it kind of is an equalizer in the playing field because now everybody's having to figure this out. So like even companies that are maybe 2 or 3 times bigger than their competitor, there's a little bit of equalizer now because now there's a new tool, there's a new car that they can use to come meet up with, get there. So I talked to this about with some people that we work with, and it's like the seniority gap is shrinking right now because now the young buck who just got out of college that's really smart and knows how to use these tools probably can outperform maybe the 35-year-old that is still stuck in using, Google Slides and other stuff, like other SaaS tools. And they have there's a huge process of people needing to unlearn things to adopt these things. So like the younger generation also has an advantage there, that the ones that are sharp and can get there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I had a realization probably 10 years ago now, where I was working for an OEM, automotive OEM, and we would get these placemats, they call them, which was like when a new vehicle was about to launch, they would give us a photo gallery with all the different trims, different colors, different angles of the car. And they would ask a group, I think it was a sample size of like 1,000 executives and creatives and trying to get a real cross-section of population to vote on what were the angles and the pictures of the car that were most appealing and most likely to generate click-throughs. And overnight, we stopped getting the email. And I thought it was just me, that maybe I wasn't part of the mailing list. And I was just curious, and I wrote back, what happened? Why am I not on the list? And they wrote back saying, well, actually, now we have a predictive AI. And for the past 3 years, we've been testing people against AI. And the AI was a lot more capable at predicting what was going to generate a click-through in banners. And that's things like, what will Latinos in Texas click through on this banners?
Right.
What will females at this demographic click through in Seattle? It was getting it at over 70% accuracy. And on occasion, they had said that on occasion, the human group would get it absolutely right. And so the click-throughs were over 90%. Wow. Which is fantastic data. But the AI was good at getting consistency. And when you're trying to build a pipeline of any kind of sales or marketing, consistency is more valuable than spikes where you might win the competition. And I think for us in the creative industry, that means that if it's not now, incredibly soon, the boring middle section of advertising, the stuff that actually attracts most of the ad spend, is going to go to AI. Yeah. Because if I invest $1, I want to make sure I get $10 of click-throughs and potential ROI on it. Right. And I can kind of guarantee that with AI. I can go to a brilliant agency and it may become the buzzy campaign of the decade. Yeah. But it may also be a failure or just break even. Yeah. AI will give me that consistency. And in a world that has some uncertainty, some risk, we're potentially also deglobalizing. Yeah. I think all that is going to force this. And so I think we'll be left with agencies that are either, sufficiently wacky and weird that they appeal to something other that AI can't do. Right. Or they're doing something that from a implementation standpoint is hard for AI to do. So like we're banking a lot on experiences where people and brands meet in the real world. Yeah. We're banking a lot on new and emerging technologies where there's not a lot of white space. And we're banking also on the stuff that an AI wouldn't have come up with. And in many cases, I use AI to brainstorm and to come up with ideas, to know what not to do. Yeah. Because I know the 5 to 15 agencies I'm competing against will have had the same list or a similar list. They just need a capable prompter and the right data, and they will probably get the same ideas. Yeah. So then it becomes price point, and I don't want to go there. Yeah. So it's interesting. You said something about having this notion of like ritual versus busy work.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like in the other areas that you're involved with, what do you, when you interface with small businesses that have employees, how do you explain to them this transition and the value add when, you know, to them they got a paycheck out of that complexity.
Yeah.
And it's tough because I guess for you, you're on the front line. You're actually, OpenAI and Sam Altman doesn't have to talk to these people.
Yeah.
Just talks to shareholders, really.
Yeah.
But, you're really on the front line. How do you have those difficult conversations?
Yeah.
You must have them often, I guess.
Yeah. First, you talk smack about AI to them because they love that. You're like, I know it sucks.
Yeah.
I know this thing doesn't get you the answer.
Yeah.
So like you obviously connecting with them is like, we know the stuff sucks. So like obviously saying the obvious and the things that they probably are thinking about around how like, this thing's not as great as everyone says it is. So relating there. But you have to work towards getting to a wow moment. And it goes back to like, it's not like AI adoption is not on the business, it's on the personal level of like the employees there. Because you can give them all the tools and stuff, it matters if they're going to be using it, you know, the day to day and all. So you have to strive towards what is going to be that wow moment and identifying what's that thing that person hates, right? And so I was working with this like finance department and I was like, what do you do for this person? And they're like, oh, like I take this off their plate because XYZ. I'm like, so you're giving them agency because you're taking off some of this mundane work. Now think about what is the mundane, repetitive work that you can take off of yourself. Like that's how you should think about it. And they're like, wow, okay, right? And so, it's going to there will be certain roles that will be eliminated because those things are not going to be needed. But other things are going to be able to pop up too for people too. So people that, need to actually do like some like hard thinking and all of that. So trying to, relate with them, right, on the things that are not great and then try to identify the things that they really hate doing. Because those typically those things are the boring stuff and AI is the best with the boring stuff.
Yeah.
No, everyone's trying to get the creative, everyone's trying to get the video because that's so cool. But that is the hardest thing. Everyone's trying to get it to do sales because everyone wants more sales. But like the Frontier, Ethan Mollick, that's the professor. Like he has his jagged edge of like, here's all the AI use cases in order to, here's a Frontier model. It's like a jagged edge, and here's all the use cases inside of it and outside of it. And a lot of people try to do the use cases outside of the jagged edge because they think it's easy and it's the thing that's going to bring the most value. And like AI SDR was a perfect example of that. Bunch of failure because you're emotionally trying to convey someone to buy something, and so by the point that AI is emotional, I think everything's kind of could be screwed. So that's really that's kind of a long way of saying it, but that's kind of how we try to approach it too.
I mean, we found every time we've implemented AI for an organization where there was an efficiency that had as a trade-off that someone's role or hours were reduced. So far, it gave them permission to go chase growth. And so I guess the polite way to say it is that, you'll be doing stuff that you want, but in the real world, that's not what people are worried about. They're not worried about doing what they want. They're worried about doing what's going to give them a paycheck.
Right.
And I've found that one of the motivating ways to think about it is to say, well, if I can take this portion off, what is going to generate growth for your business? What is going to generate new openings for you to get challenged and to do the next thing? It's a bit like you're effectively using technology to get that next promotion you wanted. Yeah. So it's encouraging growth, but it's a different way of looking at the problem in many respects.
Absolutely.
So just before we sort of close off a little bit. For people who are, interested in your business and how what you offer, and who are thinking, maybe AI is something I know. I may have heard a competitor that's using it. Yeah. What do you recommend should be their journey to figure out whether AI should be on their agenda? Is there a book they should read? Are there tools or things they should try to know whether, not just playing with ChatGPT, but to know whether it's right for them to make an investment?
Right. I think finding, I mean, whatever the best way you learn, right? What type of information? Is it you going and doing it, right? Is it you reading newsletters? I think it's important to have that part of like your daily life, right? Having some newsletter that's showing you like what's going on. Everyone has, they're dealing with the fires in their day to day. So you just need some structure of like something that's reminding you that is there and being updated with it. And I'm a person that's like, I'm not as much of like reading up on things. I just go and try it. And that's how I really learn and break stuff and whatever. So I would suggest people like getting to newsletters. Ethan Mollick is my favorite person in the space because he kind of just takes it. He's not selling anything. He's not, just saying like this is gonna change the world. Like he's just like straight facts and data. So I really, really appreciate his approach. So I would say that's probably my number one person that I would like look into. And then for ideas, everyone knows like in the AI space, like Greg Eisenberg has done a great job of that like idea browser stuff and all those things. And I think he's another great person to be following. And because sometimes like for me, like I just need this, I visually need to see it, and I can just do that through following a couple people on social media. But again, that's because that's how I learn, right? So I think people need like whatever the best way for them to learn is up to them. I have friends that are subscribed to different types of content that's a little more like long form because that's how they digest things. So it's just up to like how they want to learn today. So
it's funny. I also just the way I sometimes answer that question is people come in thinking I need AI. They have some FOMO, so they look at case studies where they've seen AI execute well, and they go, does that line up with my business needs? I actually think turning it on its head and actually thinking a little bit like an ops consultant or a COO, and you look at your organization, you go, where is there a cost in there that could be better invested? Where is there something repetitive or failure points, or as you said earlier, like decision making that is like 50-50 on these decision making parts of your process. It's more thinking about that and then matchmaking with the right AI tool and potentially talking to businesses like yours, right? Because I think because it's still new for a lot of businesses, in the same way blockchain was a few years ago, people were thinking, well, how can I use tokens in my business, and do I need a trustless model somewhere in there? Instead of thinking about it the other way, what are the parts of my operation that are slowing me down, generating friction, are failure points, and is there an AI tool set or use case that could solve it? And then who are the people who could unlock it, right?
I think it's the people thing. I keep going back to that. It's so funny. It's like the funny thing is for you to automate like a very entry-level job, you need a very senior, sharp person to use the AI to automate that. So it does come down to people too. It's just like, who can I listen to? Who can I follow? And like, who can I partner with? So like, it does just come down to the personnel of the people that you soundboard with, you're talking to, it's your friends and all. Cause like I have like group chats that we just like throw stuff in, just like talking. And it's just like it's really casual. And for that, like, I know my friends and we all kind of just like learn. For me, like, I just ask my friends, I'm like, what do you do? Like, they'll just tell me some random interaction they're having with a model. And like, I learn from those interactions that I have with them. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Like, that's how you're thinking about it. So,
Okay. And then before we go, like, what is one idea in the back of your head that hasn't shipped yet, or something that you think,
trying to think.
Damn, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to find someone somewhere with whom I could do this. Is there something that's really sort of gnawing at you and you're like, oh, I want to do that?
Oh my God, so many things. I think one of the things that I get asked about this from peers, and I've got asked by people in just like at MTI and Mind AI from clients, is obviously working within the financial space. People are trying to figure out, can this thing make decisions for acquisition and investing? Everyone's asking for an investor bot. It's like, can this thing help me make bets in the stock market? Can this thing know what the spread is on this like sports gambling? And like, actually in past life at the product studio, like we did build a like fantasy sports like AI product for somebody, which was really cool. So that's one of the things, like, it's fun because like at a free time, I'm like, okay, like obviously do some side betting or like some random investments here and there. And I just get asked about that the most, so that would be a pretty fun one to do. But like then it's deterministic of like this is what you should do, but it needs to just be like a smart model or bot or agent that can help you do like, okay, here's the probability of XYZ and you should do it. So that's a really cool one. And I got pretty obsessive with like context, like kidding, because I was like, can there be a marketplace where, say there's a marketplace of 200 context kits, and people that want to contribute that or have domain expertise can contribute to those context kits and get like a piece of people who use that. So I'm like, okay, like I am a physician in this practice, whatever it is. And so say you have 50 physicians contribute to this context kit,
right.
And that's something that people embed into their Claude when they have questions about the specific thing that this physician could answer. So I was like, I think everything's context. So it's like, there's going to be a marketplace where everyone we need to download expert brains. So like, yeah. And so I was like, can I build a marketplace for that? So that's like one around that. We can like, yeah. So you can embed any sort of expertise into your chats and all. It's like, I've thought about that for a little while.
That's pretty cool.
But
and then we could become agents for our own digital twin selves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I was like,
you want an AI engineer? Well, there's Ursh 2.0 AI.
Yeah.
You can borrow him for a minute.
Yeah. I was like, can I get 100 of the best creative directors, and then their knowledge just contributes to this context kit?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would pay for that. So.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
For sure.
It's
Ursh, mate, thank you so much for joining on a Friday afternoon. Really appreciate it. And then for people who are watching, your business is called mindyai.com?
Yeah. mindyai.co is the
mindyai.co.
Yeah. We're actually launching a new website in the next week or so. And yeah, like my co-founder and I and our team, we just love having conversations with people. So people can feel free to, book a time and talk. We're not just doing, that productivity engineering. We're also helping founders and stuff launch ideas too, and be a soundboard and advise them. So yeah, we just love having conversations.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, mate, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.